One of the most important things that a drummer needs in order to make a groove feel right for the moment is control over dynamic depth. Right? Dynamic depth is the distance between your loudest and your softest notes. In our terminology, we're usually thinking accents and ghost notes. And really extreme dynamic depth would be like you're playing ridiculously loud accents and like almost inaudible ghost notes. The goal with dynamic depth isn't to necessarily always use the full spectrum, but it's to be able to use the whole spectrum because you might need it, right? So for example, accents, ghost notes, if we're playing a punk rock gig, they're all here, right? Everything's relative in drumming, so like the ghost notes are quieter than the accents by a little bit, but these ghost notes would be accents compared to, I don't know, a funk groove. Whereas if you're playing at a cocktail hour, your accents might need to be what would normally be ghost notes or inaudible in a punk rock show, but your ghost notes need to be even quieter. So first, awareness of this spectrum is huge, and second, your ability to move along it and control those dynamics is the other part of this, right? Because when you take a groove from here to here, it's not just like a subtle change of dynamics. It's actually, it becomes a different groove completely, right? So just to take a simple example, if I just play like, accents are here, ghost notes are super quiet. Really deep dynamics. Now I bring the ghost notes up, leave the accents where they are. And that second one might be the correct groove for the song, and the first one might be wrong, right? It might sound bad. And you might not notice this because you might be, learning a groove or you read it on a page and you're like, I'm playing the groove. Like there's ghost notes, there's accents, this is what it sounds like. But this is where we have to keep in mind how relative all of these dynamics are to each other. And that a song where there's a bunch of loud, guitars, or there's like a really full keyboard synth that's just droning throughout it, that's going to cover up the sound of your ghost notes. So you're going to have to make them louder to make them heard at all. And relative to the loud band, these ghost notes might just barely get through the audience and come through, relatively speaking, as ghost notes compared to your louder accents, right? And this applies to everything, right? This applies to basic grooves, which is the place where we want to really be in a very nuanced way thinking about this, but it also applies to your fills, right? If you're trying to play a fill around the kit, like if you're using some of the like right, left kick, 4s and 2s kind of stuff. Let's say you've been studying the right, left kick subset course on my website, jpbouvetmethod.com, and you're now flowing freely with these patterns and improvising infinitely. Let's say you're doing that, you can pay attention to the left-hand ghost notes, right, left kick, right, left kick, right, left kick, and play this game as well, right? You've got your accents, which is, you've got your ghost notes. Energy level is completely different, right? In the first one, the ghost notes, you almost want them to be like unnoticed, right? Like there's a ghost in the room, you feel its presence, you don't actually see it, right? Same kind of thing. You kind of feel train tracks going on, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, but you don't notice them explicitly. Whereas in the second one, you feel every single 16th note filled and powerful, right? And it's a completely different energy level for the same patterns, right? This is why I'm saying paying attention to dynamic depth might double or triple the vocabulary that you already have, because this sounds radically different than So anyways, dynamic depth, one of the most important tools we have at our disposal, not talked about a lot, but a very important thing. And it's not something you need to set aside time for and work on. this is something to just keep in mind all the time when you're drumming, right? If you're practicing ghost notes, if you're working on a new placement for some ghost notes, you're working on doubles as ghost notes, work on them in the way that's most natural, that feels right, and then remember, okay, I need to be able to control dynamic depth. I need to play these double ghost notes actually at a pretty high volume so that they'll cut through the mix. I also need to play them at a very low volume. And what this does, right, every time you adjust the volume, your technique has to adapt. So your technique, in a sense, becomes more broadly, more broadly proficient, right, more broadly understood. Your muscle memory is learning a more broad technique for the delivery of this idea. And that's just going to help you across the board in every way, right? The coordination, the technique, and the musicality, the actual delivery of the idea when you're in a moment that requires a different level of dynamics than you may have originally learned it at. So that's dynamic depth. If you're into these creative ideas, like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and there'll be a lot more of it coming. Talk to you soon.